Hi guys, welcome back to another interesting tutorial. My name is Chine. If you're new to my channel, you're welcome, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for being here. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how I made this oversized shirt and a short. This tutorial was requested by a subscriber, so if you would love to learn how I made this, please keep watching and don't forget to subscribe. To make this two-piece, I'll be using 2.5 yards of shirt fabric. If you would prefer a long trouser for this, please go ahead and buy 3 yards. 2.5 will not be enough. So the first thing I'm going to be doing now is to get the length of my shirt. For the length of the shirt, I'll be using 32 inches. If you want yours to be longer, you can make it 33 or 34 inches, but it shouldn't be more than 35 inches, so it won't be too long. So the next thing I'm going to do is to measure out 2 inches. Now this 2 inches is going to be for the button side. After measuring out these 2 inches, I'm going to fold it in, then I'll continue with my drafting. The next thing I'm going to do is to get my shoulder to bust point, shoulder to under bust. Then I'll go ahead and get my waist to hip. I'll be using about 8 inches for the waist to hip. I will use my ruler to connect the lines, then I'll proceed with other measurements. I also had to label so it doesn't confuse you guys. The first line is the bust point line, the second line is the half length line, and the third line is the hip line. I'll go ahead and get the neck width and the neck depth. For the neck width, I'm going to be using 2.5, and for the depth, I'm also going to be using 2.5. You can use 3 inches for the neck depth. It all depends on how you want the collar to be, okay? I'll go ahead and get my shoulder measurement. So my normal shoulder measurement is 14 inches. If I divide it by 2, I'll have 7. But because this is an oversized shirt, I'm going to be using 17 inches. So if I divide it by 2, I'll have 8.5. The next thing I'll be doing is to get the chest line. Now my normal chest line is 7 inches, but because I'm making a shirt, I'm going to be using 9 inches. So here is what I'm going to do. I'm going to use 7.5 for the front of the armhole, then I'll add 1.5 to the back, because when you're making a shirt, the back always extends to the front. So this is how I put my tape. I had to remove 1.5 from the armhole, then I went ahead to put the measurement at 9 inches. So the other 1.5 that is supposed to make it 9 inches, I'm going to add it to the back. So I'll go ahead and draw a straight line. Then from the shoulder slant, I'm going to draw a straight line. I'll divide this line by 2, then I'll come in by 0.5. I'll go ahead and connect the armhole. The next thing I'm going to do is to impute my bust measurement. So my bust measurement is 33. If I divide it by 2, I have 8.25. But because I'm making an oversized shirt, I'm going to be using 11 inches. Okay, now this 11 inches, I'm going to put it on the waist and also on the hip. So I'll go ahead and draw a straight line. When you're making a shirt like this, you don't need to start shaping the waistline. You just need to use a straight line to connect from the bust to the full length of the shirt. I'm done drafting the front at this point. The next thing I'm going to do is to curve this shirt. So from the down part of the shirt, I'm going to go up by 4 inches. So I'll connect it with my ruler to the center part of the shirt. You can as well use freehand to do this, so you can get a very good curve. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is to cut out this shirt, then I'll go ahead and show you guys how to draft the back. I'm done cutting out the front, and this is how it looks. So the next thing I'm going to do is to put this front on another paper so I can cut out the back. On the top of the paper, I'm going to measure out 3 inches. Now after the 3 inches, I'm going to put the front. This 3 inches is for the back extension. Remember I said the back is going to extend to the front. So now this is how you're going to do it. So you measure your 3 inches and put the front from the 3 inches. Some people actually use 2 inches for this, but for this tutorial, I'm going to be using 3 inches. Okay, so I've gotten my 3 inches. I'm going to use my pin to pin the front to the back. On the shoulder area, I'm going to come down by 1 inch. This 1 inch is going to be for the back shoulder slant. I also took out 1 inch for the front shoulder slant, so I'm just doing the same for the back so that the front and the back will just be the same. I'll go ahead and cut out the back shoulder slant. Then I'll fold the back over to the front like so. By folding the back over like this, if I measure the chest line is going to be 9 inches. For the neck width and the neck depth of the back, I'm going to be using 2.5 for the neck width of the back and 1 inch for the neck depth. So I'm going to fold the back over to the front. Then I'll use my marker to trace out the neck before cutting it out. I'll just use my marker to gradually trace it to the 1 inch neck depth. Then I'll cut it out. When you're cutting the neck of the back, you have to be very careful so that the back neck is not wider than the front. Just be very careful. Do it exactly the way you see me doing it here and your shirt will be perfect. So I'll go ahead and cut out the armhole and also the sides of the back. Then on the down part, I'm going to measure 3 inches. The back is going to be longer than the front, so I'll just go ahead and connect it to the side of the shirt. This part is not compulsory. You can choose to make the length equal. I'll just go ahead and cut this out. That will be all for the shirt. I'll show you guys how to draft the collar in the second video. So now this is all for the drafting of the shirt. The next thing I'm going to be showing you guys is how to draft the short. So this is what I was trying to explain to you guys. The chest line is 9 inches now because I've extended the back by 3 inches. So the 1.5 I removed from the front, I went ahead to add it to the back. So the chest line is 9 inches at this point. So the next thing is to show you guys how to draft the short. For the short, I'm going to start with the length. The length of my short is going to be 15 inches. I'll just draw a straight line, then I'll get my crotch length. To get the crotch length, all you need to do is to divide your hip measurement by 4. So if I divide my hip measurement by 4, I'll have 9 inches. I'll mark that 9 inches, then I'll draw a line. I'll go ahead and divide my hip measurement by 4, then I'll add 1 inch. So if I divide my hip measurement by 4, I'll have 9 inches. If I add 1 inch to it, I'll have 10 inches. So I'll just mark it, then I'll draw a straight line. So the next thing I will do is to get my waist to hip. My waist to hip is 8 inches, so I'm just going to measure 8 inches, then I'll draw a straight line. After getting the waist to hip, the next thing I'll do is to impute my waist measurement. Now this short is going to have elastic, so I'm not going to use my exact waist measurements. I'll be using the hip measurement. So I'll just put 9 inches on the waist. Okay, then I'll connect it to the hip. I'll go ahead and get my crotch extension. To get the crotch extension, I'm going to divide my hip measurement by 20. So if I do that, I'll have 1.8. Then I'll approximate it to 2 inches. I'll use freehand to connect the crotch. Then from that point, I'll just draw a straight line down. I'll come to the side of the short. Then I'll go in by 1 inch. I'll also connect it to the top. Okay, then I'm supposed to remove 1 inch for the band, but because I want this to be high waist a bit, I'm not going to remove it. I'm just going to add 1 inch band to the short. So this is all for the front. I'll go ahead and cut it out. If you have any question, just ask me in the comment section. So it's time for me to draft the back of the short. I'm just going to place the front on paper. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come on the waistline. I'm going to come in by 2 inches. Okay, now I'm going to extend the back by 1.5 so it will fit the butt. If you have a bigger butt, just use 2 inches. Okay, now from that point, I'm going to measure 9 inches, which I use for the waist. I'll just go ahead and use my ruler to connect it. I'm going to use my ruler to connect a straight line to the 1 inch I extended for the back. Then on the hip line, I'll come out by 1 inch. You can do 1 inch, you can do 1.5, but I'll be using 1 inch. So I'll just mark 1 inch all the way down and I'll use my ruler to connect it. The next thing I'm going to do now is to get the back crotch extension. To get the back crotch extension, you can divide your hip measurement by 10. For this particular method of cutting the shorts, I'm going to be using 2.5 for the crotch extension. Now you can divide your hip measurement by 10. Okay, then use it for the crotch extension, or you add 2.5 to the crotch extension. If you feel it's going to be tight, then just divide your hip measurement by 10. Okay, so on the inseam, I'm going to measure 1 inch, then I'll use my ruler to connect it to the crotch. The last thing I'm going to be doing for the back of the short is to connect the crotch line. So I'll just go ahead and use freehand to do this. I'm done with the back at this point. The last thing I'm going to do is to cut out the back. I'm done cutting the back and this is what it looks like. You can also use this method to cut a trouser. The trouser will also come out well. So the next thing I'm going to be showing you guys is how to cut the shirt sleeve. I'm going to do all the cutting in this video. Then in the next video, I'll show you guys how to sew the first thing I'm going to do is to get the length of the sleeve. Then for the cap sleeve, I'll be using 4 inches. I'm using 4 inches for the cap sleeve because the sleeve is going to be big. For the length of the elbow, I'll be using 12 inches. Then for the round sleeve, I'll be using 7 inches. So I'm just going to connect the line. The next thing I'll be doing is to measure my round armhole, the shirt's round armhole. I'm going to measure it. So I got 10 inches. I'll go ahead and put it on that first line, which is the cap sleeve. So I'm going to put 10 inches there. Please, if I was making a normal shirt, the measurements will be smaller. This is an oversized shirt, that's why the measurement is big. So from the top of the sleeve, I'm going to draw a slant line to that 10 inches that I measured on the cap sleeve. So this is how I measured the round armhole. The back of the shirt is still overlapping the front, so you just go ahead and measure round the armhole. Then put the measurement on the cap sleeve, okay? Then draw a slant line. I'll go ahead and divide this slant line by 2. Then with freehand, I'm going to connect the sleeve like so. You can either use ruler to do this or you use your freehand, just the way I'm doing it here. Just connect it like that. So I'll go ahead and put my round sleeve. For my round sleeve, I'm going to be using 16 inches. So if you divide 16 into 2, you have 8. So I'll just mark 8. On the elbow, I'll mark 8 inches, and on the wrist, I'll go ahead and mark 6 inches. I'll use my ruler to connect this measurement. Then the next thing I'm going to do now is to cut out the sleeve. But before I cut out the sleeve, I'm going to go up by 2 inches or 2.5 on the wrist. Now this is because I'm going to be adding a cuff to this shirt. So I'll cut out from the 2 inches. After cutting out the sleeve, I'll just bring the pattern so that I'll make sure the sleeve is okay. I need to make sure this sleeve will actually match the armhole of the shirt. The last thing I'm going to do on this sleeve is to mark where I'm going to sew in the placket. So on the back of the sleeve, from the side, I'll measure 2.5 inches, then 4 inches for the length of the placket. Okay, so I'm going to use my scissors to cut it out. Now exactly this same thing I'm marking on paper, I'm going to also mark it on my fabric. Okay, this is where the placket of the shirt is going to be. This placket is always on the back of the shirt. Okay, so I'll go ahead and use my scissors to cut through that line. I'll do the same thing on fabric. So the next thing I'm going to do is to start cutting. So for the short, I'm going to add extra inches. I'm going to add 2 inches extra for the folding. So I'll cut the front and I'll cut the back. For the inner tie, I'm going to add ½ inch. For the side, I'll add 1 inch for sewing allowance. I'm done cutting the short. The next thing I'm going to do is to cut the shirt. So for the shirt, I'm going to add ½ inch on the armhole, ½ inch on the shoulder, and ½ inch on the neck. I'm not adding extra allowance on the side. I'm done cutting the back part of the shirt. This is the front part. Now that 2 inches that I folded in, I have to bring it out because I'll need to cut it on the fabric. So I'll go ahead and cut out the front. So I'm going to add ½ inch on the shoulder, ½ inch on the neck, ½ inch on the armhole. I'm done cutting the shirt and the shorts, so I'll go ahead and cut out the sleeve cuff. For the sleeve cuff, I'm going to be using the width is going to be 10 inches and the length is going to be 3 inches. So I'm going to cut it into 4 places. 2 is going to be for one sleeve and the other 2 is going to be for the other sleeve. So this is the end of this particular video. In my next video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to sew this, including how to sew the collar. This is the finished result after I was done sewing. So in the next video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to sew this, how to attach the sleeve cuff, how to sew the collar, and every other thing. This tutorial is very detailed, so you wouldn't want to miss out on this one. Please give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.